For whatever reason, there seems to be more microbrands based out of Singapore than anywhere else in the world. And today we're going to check out a collaboration between two of them, with the Vario RZE UltraHex Titanium Trench, a collaboration between Vario and RZE. And since this watch is a collaboration, Dave from over at Just the Watch and I also decided to do this review as a collaboration. So what you're watching right now is going to be part one, and this is just going to be me on my channel. I'm going to go over the details, the why, the specs, and kind of the design, just more of what you need to know about the watch. And I'll be showing you shots of the Damascus version that was sent to me and some shots of the yellow version that was sent to Dave. Then over on Dave's channel is going to be part two, and that's where we're going to get into more of a discussion on what we ultimately think about the watch, our final opinions, and whatever else we feel like talking about. And before we get to it, one quick disclaimer, which is that this watch is a prototype that was provided by the brands. Now, other than the case spec, I don't think there's going to be any significant changes, but just be aware of that. They also mentioned that when the production units start shipping, they'll send us one of those later on to keep. So that's why the promotional tag is up. That said, let's get to it. And essentially this watch is a titanium version of Vario's 1918 Trench that they previously put out, where all of those were steel. And this one does come complete with RZE's UltraHex scratch-resistant coating applied. There are a few other changes here as well, but essentially, kind of in a nutshell, that's it. And I think in a lot of ways, this represents what each brand does best. With Vario, it's their great design language, and with RZE, it's their love of titanium and creating tough, capable watches. In this case, you're looking at a watch that's on the smaller side, 37mm with a 45mm lug-to-lug, and that does line up with the previous trenches. In terms of total thickness, you're looking at 12mm total. The case itself is about 10mm, but if you're going to go all the way from the closed case back to the top of the beautiful domed sapphire, that's where it's 12. And as a side note here, I think this blank case back they sent us is not the finished final version. I think the final one will look more like this. And it's also kind of hard to tell with this BUND strap on it, but it also comes with fixed 18mm wired lugs. So it's going to work with this BUND strap, any 18mm NATO or Zulu style straps out there, but you can't really use this with regular straps. So it looks cool, fits with that sort of retro design, but one of the downsides is you can't use it with normal straps. Beyond that, it's fairly capable with 100 meters of water resistance, as well as ultra lightweight at 55 grams. And that's 55 grams with this crazy horse leather BUND strap. And more on that BUND strap in a bit, but here you can see it on my 7¼ inch wrist, with that BUND slightly modified. Again, more on that in a second. But I will say that right now, it's lightweight, elegant, as well as exotic looking with this Damascus dial. Now, if you're not familiar with the original Trench, you can go check out that original review, or two reviews. I reviewed the regular one and then later on reviewed the medic version. But the basic idea behind it is that it's a World War I style field watch built to modern specs. When most people think of field watches, they always think of something like a Hamilton Khaki or a Dirty Dozen remake. But while those did lay the foundation for what a field watch is supposed to be, they weren't actually the original field watches. The original field watches were the trench watches of World War I, which in some ways has kind of been forgotten about. And if you look at this design, you can kind of understand that the original trench watches were often modified pocket watches, where fixed wired lugs were then added so they could then strap them to their wrist rather than carry them in a pocket. Which again explains the design of the case here. And remember, the difference between the regular trenches and this collaboration is that this is titanium, which I think comes from the RZE side of the collaboration, and like most of their watches, it is entirely blasted. So it's a smooth, simple, tooly looking finish that looks great with the grayer, duller undertones that titanium has over steel. The dial here is where things get a little bit more interesting. Now, again, remember that those trench watches were originally pocket watches of the early 1900s. So the dial layout, the font of the Arabics, the cathedral hands, the train track chapter ring, that was much more standard with those. Where later field watches, the World War II style field watches, there the design was pushed more towards function over form, and a lot of that just was because they really were a tool being bought in bulk by government contracts. So those earlier watches that were originating from modified pocket watches had a little bit more style, which I think ultimately, and this is one of the reasons I really like the original trenches, was because it makes a field watch that's a little bit more elegant than your standard World War II style field watches. And since I'm a geek, my mind always goes back to Star Wars with that one line that it's an elegant weapon for a more civilized age. Now, if you know anything about trench warfare, that's probably not true. Trench warfare is pretty nasty and bloody. But when it comes to the watches, I think it is. Now, with this collaboration, there have been a few changes from the original Trench. The first of which is these different special dials, which are clearly more modern inspired, where there's a LUME carbon fiber version, one with RZE's signature yellow color, and this one, the Damascus version, which I gotta say I really like, as it has this smoky gunmetal uniqueness to it. Another change is down here on the sub-second dial. As typical with the original version, Vario's logo is there up at the top. But RZE kind of added a very subtle, almost hidden logo down here in the sub-second dial. Or subtle until you turn the lights off, and then it's a bit more obvious. And LUME here, as long as we're talking about it, is also something that has been greatly improved. And something I'm incredibly happy to see. Because when I bought my original Trench, one of the things that I was really disappointed in was the poor LUME. But here, now it's on par with a Seiko diver. With regard to the movement, they're using a Miyota 82S5, a standard 8 series Miyota with a sub-second dial, which is going to include your standard 40-hour power reserve, standard hacking, hand winding, and the standard louder Miyota rotor. And the last thing to point out here is the BUND strap. Like most Vario straps, the leather here is really nice. But the thing is, Ivan over at Vario, when he created the original one, knew that not everyone would actually want to wear a BUND strap. So he designed this one that you could actually kind of remove that back BUND section, and then it's more like a standard regular two-piece. Which is honestly the way I preferred wearing it, as that extra bit of leather on the BUND part of it makes your wrists a little bit extra sweaty in the summer, as well as just extra thick, which I think was a genius idea on his part. But otherwise, that's really the watch in a nutshell. So go ahead and do your usual stuff down below. But remember, we're not quite done yet. So go over to Dave's channel and check out part 2, where we're actually going to get into the nitty-gritty of what we really think about this one, as well as whatever else we want to talk about. So see you over there.